development of the study of politics. Introduction. Having discussed the levels at which politics takes place in the last study session, it is important for us to trace the development of political science. In this study session, you will be exposed to the behavioralism revolution that swept across sociology and psychology in the 1950s, caught up with political science, and shifted the attention of the political scientists from the formal structure of the state to man's political behavior. Behavioralism aims at subjecting human behavior to scientific analysis. Prior to 1950, study of politics had been preoccupied with the moral end of the state, as well as the formal structure of government, that is, the constitution, the origin, and the purpose of the structure. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this study session, you should be able to trace the development of political science as a discipline, identify major events that have shaped the course and content of political science as a scientific study of politics, and discuss the debate on the issue of a science of politics or scientificness of politics. The study of politics before the advent of behavioralism. Let me remind you that political science as an academic discipline is concerned with the systematic and scientific study and analysis of politics. As a separate field for the study of analysis and politics, political science is a relatively late arrival within the social sciences, where it is well developed. It is a relatively young academic field of study in many countries. It may interest you to note that political science was first taught in American universities in the 1850s. In the past, as noted earlier, the term political science was not always distinguished from political philosophy and political history, since the subject was taught as part of other academic disciplines. Even the modern discipline has a clear set of antecedents, including also political economy, moral philosophy, history, political theology, and other fields concerned with normativism, or what ought to be questions, and with a major emphasis on the characteristics and functions of the ideal state. The history of Western politics, strictly speaking, can be traced back to the political philosophers who belonged to the Socratic school of thought, namely Plato, who lived between 427 and 347 BC, Xenophon, who lived between 430 and 350 BC, and Aristotle, who is concerned to be the founding father of political science, who lived between 384 and 322 BC. The works of these authors, The Republic and Laws by Plato, and The Politics and Nicomachean Ethics by Aristotle, analyzed political systems philosophically, going by earlier Greek poetic and historical reflections. It is important to note that in the height of the Roman Empire, the study of politics was oriented towards understanding history, understanding methods of governing, and describing the operation of governments. Nearly 1,000 years elapsed from the foundation of the city of Rome in 753 BC to the fall of the Roman Empire, or the beginning of the Middle Ages. Philosophers and historians in this period emphasize the importance of Roman institutions in making the state as a whole stable. According to Polybius, Roman institutions were the backbone of the empire but Roman law is the medulla. With the fall of the Western Roman Empire, there arose a more dispersed arena for political studies. The rise of monotheism, and particularly for the Western tradition, Christianity brought to light a new space for politics and political action. For instance, Augustine of Hippo's The City of God synthesized current philosophies and political traditions with those of Christianity, redefining the borders between what was religious and what was political. During the Middle Ages, the study of politics was widespread in the churches and courts, and the theologians and political commentators of the period were preoccupied with the political questions surrounding the relationship between church and state. The two concepts were clarified and contested in this period. In the 13th century, Aristotle's Politics was translated and became the basic text, as in the works of Saint Thomas Aquinas. The antecedents of politics can be traced back to scholars from other continents as well. For instance, in ancient India, Chanakya, who lived between 350 and 275 BC, as a political thinker, wrote the Arthashastra, a treatise on political thought, economics, and social order. This work discusses monetary and fiscal policies, welfare, international relations, and war strategies in detail, among other topics. Also, the ancient China was home to several competing schools of political thought. These included Mohism, a utilitarian philosophy, Taoism, legalism, a school of thought based on the supremacy of states, and Confucianism, a school of thought that greatly influenced strategic studies in political science. Moreover, during the Italian Renaissance, Niccolò Machiavelli established the emphasis of modern political science on direct empirical observation of political institutions and actors. Machiavelli in the early 16th century introduced what some believe is the crux of modern political science. His work, The Prince, was about getting and using political power. As a realist, he focused on power, arguing that to accomplish anything good, such as unification of Italy and expulsion of foreigners who ruined it, the prince had to be rational and tough in exercise of power. Machiavelli has been described as the father of the politics model of political science. Let me point out at this point that the expansion of the scientific paradigm during the Enlightenment further pushed the study of politics beyond normative determinations. Question: which of these political philosophers did not contribute to the study of politics? 1. Aristotle. 2. Plato. 3. Xenophon. 4. Comte. Feedback on the question. The correct answer is D. If you choose D, then you are correct, because Auguste Comte's works dwells on the discipline of sociology and of the doctrine of positivism. Options A, B, and C, in fact, include political philosophers such as Aristotle, Plato, and Marx have made useful contributions to the development of politics as a discipline. In the Enlightenment period, the contractualists emerged and contributed immensely to the study of politics through their social contract theory. Social contract is a theory that assumes that individuals join and stay in civil society as if they had signed a contract. Like Machiavelli, Thomas Hobbes, one of the contractualists, believed that a strong central power, such as a monarchy, was necessary to rule the innate selfishness of the individual, but neither of them believed in the divine right of kings. John Locke, another Englishman, on the other hand, who wrote the two treatises of government, and who did not believe in the divine right of kings either, sided with Aquinas and stood against Machiavelli and Thomas Hobbes by accepting Aristotle's dictum that man seeks to be happy in a state of social harmony as a social animal. Unlike Aquinas' preponderant view on the salvation of the soul from original sin, Locke believed man comes into the world with a mind that is basically a tabula rasa. According to Locke, an absolute ruler as proposed by Hobbes is unnecessary, for natural law is based on reason and equality, seeking peace and survival for man. It should be mentioned that Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who lived in the 18th century France, was considered as one of those who laid the philosophical groundwork for the French Revolution. Although he accepted the theories of Hobbes and Locke, he deviated a little by theorizing that life in a state of nature was downright good. People lived according to him as noble savages, without artifice or jealousy. To Rousseau, what corrupted humans was society itself. Let me remind you his famous word in the beginning of his social contract. Man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains. This social contract theory by these writers provided an alternative explanation on the origin of the modern state. The antecedents of politics can be traced to Hegelian philosophy during the Enlightenment period. Hegel's political philosophy produced Marxism. Karl Marx, who popularized Marxism, was trained in Hegelian philosophy. Like Hegel, Marx argued that things do not happen by accident. Everything has a cause. Nevertheless, they differed. While Hegel posited that the underlying cause that moves history forward is spiritual, specifically Zeitgeist, the spirit of the times, Marx found the great underlying cause in economics. Question: social contract theory was developed by the 1. The structuralists, 2. The functionalists, 3. The contractualists, 4. The socialists. Feedback on the question. The correct answer is C. If you choose A, then you would have suggested that the social contract theory was developed by philosophers such as Ferdinand de Saussure and French anthropologist Claude Lévi-Strauss. If you choose B, then you would have stated that the social contract theory was developed by political philosophers such as Émile Durkheim. If you choose D, then you would have stated that political philosophers such as Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels developed the social contract theory. Behavioral revolution and the study of politics. In the 1950s and the 1960s, a behavioral revolution stressing the systematic and rigorously scientific study of individual and group behavior swept political science discipline. A focus on studying political behavior rather than institutions or interpretation of legal texts characterized early behavioral political science, including work by Robert Dahl, David Easton, and Philip Converse. Political behavior refers to a particular approach, a set of methods for the study of politics, and the study of human behavior in politics. Let me point out that behavioralism is not a new field of political science. Rather, it is a new approach to the study of political and governmental phenomena. The goal of behavioralism is to make political science a more scientific discipline, one which analyzes politics empirically, that is, using the scientific method. A behavioral approach adopted by behavioralists is distinguished by its attempts to describe government as a process made up of actions and interactions of individuals and groups of individuals. It is concerned with the activities of governments, political parties, interest groups, and voters. Unlike institutional theoretical approach, behavioral approach rejected institutions as the unit of analysis because government, after all, is not made up merely of documents containing laws and rules or of structures of a particular form, but is fundamentally based upon patterns of actions and activities of men. Thus, the unit of analysis of behavioralism should be the observed behavior and relationships of individuals. Beginning from 1950s, behaviorally inclined political scientists borrowed the natural scientist approach and accumulated statistics from elections, public opinion surveys, votes in legislatures, and anything else they could hang a number on. Specifically, the term behavioral science, subsequently called behavioralism, was coined by a group of quantitatively oriented, rigorously inclined social scientists at the University of Chicago. As we shall soon see in this study session, behavioralists made some remarkable contributions to the political science, shooting down some long-held but unexamined assumptions and giving political theory an empirical basis. Their best work has been on voting patterns, the area in which they get lots of valid data. The decline of behavioralism as an intellectual force in the late 1960s led to the emergence of new perspectives in the study of politics. By 1969, a newer movement, post-behavioral, emerged as a synthesis of traditional and behavioral approaches. Post-behavioralists recognize that facts and values are tied together. They are willing to use both the qualitative data of the traditionalists and the quantitative data of the behavioralists. There was to be a greater emphasis on the informal processes of politics and less on state political institutions in isolation. Post-behavioralism developed from the criticisms of behavioralism, which was attacked for concentrating on quantifiable but trivial politics, downgrading the importance of normative values in political research, and neglecting vital areas of political life which are not directly amenable to scientific treatment. Thus, the post-behavioral approach is engaged to promote a political science that will be as scientific or precise as possible, philosophical normative, politically relevant, and also socially responsible. It was eclectic in that it supported the incorporation into political science as many perspectives or approaches as can throw light on the complexities of political life. The approach encourages borrowing from other social science disciplines, particularly sociology and psychology. The advent of political science as a university discipline was marked by the creation of university departments and chairs with the title of political science arising in the late 19th century. In fact, the designation political scientist is typically reserved for those with doctorate, that is PhD, in the field. You should be aware that the process of integrating political studies of the past into a unified discipline is ongoing, and the history of political science has provided a rich field for the growth of both normative and positive political science, with each part of the discipline sharing some historical predecessors. Question: the goal of behavioralism is to make political science 1. A more scientific discipline. 2. A more philosophical discipline. 3. A more dependent discipline. 4. A more constricted discipline. Feedback on the question. The correct answer is A. If you chose B, then you have suggested that behavioral approach to the study of politics revolves around the normative, philosophical, or legal institutional approach, which once dominated the study of politics. If you chose C or D, then you would have suggested that the behavioral approach to the study of politics is limited. The behavioralists would argue otherwise. Those who study and teach politics have formed different professional associations in various countries, as well as the continental and international levels, such as Nigerian Political Science Associations, NPSA, American Political Science Association, APSA, International Political Science Association, IPSA, and the African Association of Political Science, AAPS. The American Political Science Association was founded in 1903, and the American Political Science Review was founded in 1906 in an effort to distinguish the study of politics from economics and other social phenomena. A science of politics. There is a crucial and controversial debate on the scientificness of the study of politics. Questions that are usually posed in connection with this debate include, but are not limited to: is there a science of politics? To what extent is political science a science? Can one speak of the laws of political behavior? Without mincing words, in the sense of the precision that is attributed, often mistakenly, to such pure and natural sciences as physics, mathematics, chemistry, zoology, and biology, perhaps political science is not a science. It is well established that political science cannot be considered an exact science because it is a behavioral or soft science. Its controls are less exact. It deals with people rather than matter. Nevertheless, it is possible to talk about a scientific study of politics. By this, we mean that the study will be systematic and orderly, and that political scientists will attempt to find out what is or what actually exists. Strictly speaking, we mean the use of scientific method to study political phenomena. This debate will be extensively discussed in another course meant for 200 level political science students, POS 211, Political Analysis. Like all social sciences, political science faces the difficulty of observing human actors that can only be partially observed and who have the capacity for making conscious choices, unlike other subjects such as non-human organisms in biology or inanimate objects as in physics. Despite the complexities, contemporary political science has progressed by adopting a variety of methods and theoretical approaches to understanding politics, and methodological pluralism is a defining feature of contemporary political science. Due to the independence of all social life, political science also moved towards a closer working relationship with other disciplines, especially sociology, history, economics, anthropology, law, psychology, administration, and statistics, without losing its own identity. Increasingly, political scientists have used the scientific method to create an intellectual discipline involving quantitative research methods, as well as the generation of formal economic-style models of politics to derive testable hypotheses followed by empirical verification. Over the past generations, the discipline placed an increasing emphasis on relevance and the use of new approaches to increase scientific knowledge in the field and provide explanations for empirical outcomes. In 2000, the perestroika movement in political science was introduced as a reaction against what supporters of the movement called the mathematicization of political science. Those who identified with the movement argued for a plurality of methodologies and approaches in political science and for more relevance of the discipline to those outside of it. Question: Political science as an academic discipline is concerned with 1. Systematic study and analysis of politics. 2. Scientific study of Marxism. 3. The idea of the social contract. 4. The philosophy of Aristotle. Feedback on the question. The correct answer is A. If you chose B, then you would have limited the study of politics to the political philosophies of Karl Marx, which stipulates that the stratification of the state or society into classes such as the bourgeoisies and the proletariats, and the struggle among these classes will finally culminate into the victory of the proletariats and the subsequent establishment of a classless society. If you chose C, then you would have also suggested that politics essentially entails Thomas Hobbes' idea of the emergence of the state through a social contract that exists between the citizens and the state. If you chose D, then you would have limited the study of politics around Aristotle's dictum that man seeks to be happy in a state of social harmony as social animals. Study session summary. In this study session, you traced the origin of political science as an academic discipline. As a separate field for the study and analysis of politics, political science is a relatively late arrival within the social sciences. As demonstrated in this study session, Plato, Xenophon, and Aristotle, who is considered to be the founding father of political science, contributed immensely through their works to the development of Western politics. In fact, the antecedents of politics can be traced back to many scholars from different continents, as discussed in the study session. In the post-Second World War era, the major growth area in the study of politics has been the area designated political behavior, with the emergence of behavioral approach. You were also exposed to the advent of political science as a university discipline arising in the late 19th century in America. Those who study and teach politics have formed different professional associations in various countries as well as the continent and international levels like NPSA, IPSA, and AAPS, etc. In spite of the permission about the scientificness of politics, you were informed that contemporary political science has progressed by adopting an eclectic approach. End of study session 3. Thanks for listening.